This is the APD Pod Squad. The first episode of the APD Pod Squad landed on August 24th, 2024, just over 1 year ago. In this episode, the first of Season 2, we look back at the past year with Chief of Police Mike Lamb, Deputy Chief Sean Aardema, and Deputy Chief Jackie Stepp. Sure, we'll talk about Hurricane Helene, of course, but the past year was so much more than that. So the four of us together will discuss the bad and the good, and there was a lot of good. In the History Minute with Hannah Silberman, we highlight some of the more colorful characters who have held the title of Asheville Chief of Police, like Ambrose Augustus Featherston, Herschel Springfield Harkins, and Alfred Hunter Baird, who was quite the adventurer. And Senior Police Officer Isaiah Senyak from the Community Engagement Division joins me with all the happenings in the busy month of September. It's all coming up on Episode 1 of Season 2 of the APD Pod Squad. Joining me now, the largest cast ever to be assembled in the APD Pod Squad studio, a record not to be broken as we don't have any more room in here. Chief of Police Mike Lamb, Deputy Chief Sean Aardema, and Deputy Chief Jackie Stepp, thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
As we look back at the first year of the APD Pod Squad, basically from last year this time to right now in August, going into September, and looking back at all the things that happened over the past year. I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room is Hurricane Helene. So we'll talk about that, obviously, but also things that affected all of you as individuals with different roles within the Asheville Police Department. And let's just go ahead and start with Hurricane Helene, which was at the end of September 2024 and is just about the beginning of the APD Pod Squad. We'd started at August 24th. So a month later, there we are within this thing that we've never experienced before. So, Chief, let's start with you. How did that change you, your approach, your job, and everything here at the Asheville Police Department over the course of that year? What did it do to your job over that year?
Oh, gosh. Well, I really think it made my position as Chief of Police more collaborative. We weren't really just doing police operations at that time. We were basically doing emergency management operations. So, we were helping with infrastructure mapping. We were helping with transportation, site and security, resource allocation. We were having to work closely with the State Emergency Operations Center, Buncombe County Emergency Operations Center, other executives, and NCDOT. And then whenever we had the dignitaries come in, like all the presidential candidates came in, and then different folks from Congress, different senators that came in, having to work closely with Secret Service, Capitol Police, just to do a variety of operations. So there were, I feel like, a lot of partnerships formed, across the community of Asheville, across the state of North Carolina, and then nationally as well, given the amount of folks that we had that came and helped us also.
Everybody did a little bit of different things outside their normal purview during that because it was such a different thing. Deputy Chief Stepp, you had a blow-up mattress in your office. I recall that. You were sleeping overnight sometimes and doing a lot of things that you probably weren't accustomed to doing during that.
I did. I slept here for the first couple of weeks, but I echo what the chief said. That was a moment that truly tested us as an agency, but also as a community. But at the end of the day, it really just the resilience of the police department, the community, everybody coming together. It shows what we can do when we all come together.
Deputy Chief Aardema, what do you remember most about all that? I mean, obviously there's the images and the things that occurred, but big picture-wise.
The thing that sticks out to me the most, and it's one of those things they say it's kind of human nature where you kind of gloss over the bad and focus on the good. But, when I really think hard about what sticks out to me is that no one ever got upset. We had officers coming in on their time off, essentially volunteering their time to do stuff out of their wheelhouse. We had officers from all over the United States come here, and every single one of them had an excellent attitude. It was all about public service and serving this community. And every single person in this building, that's what they were geared toward every day when they came in. And I don't think that's me glossing over it. I think that's an accurate assessment of what I saw every day. And that's something really I'm the most proud of, is because it would be real easy in such a stressful environment to, have some people that kind of break down and, maybe they can't handle it, but that didn't happen. Everybody stepped up to the plate.
We had officers and professional staff that were personally affected during the storm with the loss of property and things of that nature, and they almost ignored what was happening to them personally to help the greater good of the Asheville Police Department.
We had officers the morning of the storm who were still at work. Some officers who had even worked the night before and then could not get home because bridges were washed out, roadways were flooded. When communications went down, we had officers at work that still had no idea, what the condition of their homes were like and, what was the status of their family. And, these officers continued to work. They continued to protect the citizens of Asheville. And even with knowing that there was, that there were some struggles at home as far as different portions of land getting washed away, furniture, insides of homes being damaged, cars that were damaged. I really think it speaks to the dedication of the officers that they were very task-focused during that time, that the officers were upholding their oath. They were protecting and serving the citizens of Asheville, even in the most dire situations and not knowing what's happening at home.
Well, and with that, Rick, I was going to say the professional staff, too, that really stepped up to the plate and came in alongside the officers, took care of the officers, and just kind of went really above and beyond and were in a lot of the same situations that the officers were in terms of what they experienced personally from the hurricane.
Something else that occurred, and if you look back in history, you'll see something similar, like in times of war, medical advances out of necessity. Well, we had already established a drone unit here at the Asheville Police Department, but it was something that needed to expand and advance to do the task at hand. And it did, exponentially.
It did. The attention that we got from the storm allowed us to get some donations and also form some partnerships with different drone companies and also drone operators that came from other jurisdictions and other agencies, and they were able to bring that technology with them. But we were able to also use the drones to do infrastructure mapping. So we were able to survey damage after the storm, see what the condition of the water lines were, see what the conditions of the rivers were, do bridge surveys to make sure that bridges were solid enough so that cars could go across them again. And so the city and the state really relied on the different infrastructure mapping we were able to do with the drones in order to determine that a roadway or a bridge was safe to open up traffic for again.
We got help from so many outside agencies during that. This is my first experience with something like this. Is that the natural reaction anywhere, or do you think people had a special attachment maybe to Asheville and our department and our unit and really just wanted to help here because of maybe relationships that we developed?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. That was relationship driven. Chief Lamb had a really good pre-existing relationship with the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police, and that was one of the first probably phone conversations you were able to have. Mm-hmm. And within 24 to 48 hours, that group had people headed our way. So it was a direct result of relationships that our agency had fostered over time.
Not in the room right now is Captain Brandon Moore. We talked about the drone unit. He was instrumental with that. And because of that, a new certification, a new waiver, that was the first in the nation. Talk about that, Chief.
Yeah, so that was the Beyond Visual Line of Sight waiver, or BVLOS waiver that we were able to obtain. That allowed for drone operators to be able to fly the drones without having to watch it launch, go into the air, and then go to the destination that it was going to. And also the drone operators don't have to watch it return and then go back to the dock, which is a requirement for drone pilots to have to do. So having that waiver has allowed us to place docks at different locations around the city, and the drone operators can launch from their console at the police department, and then the drone will launch from whatever dock it's at, whether that be in North Asheville, West Asheville, downtown, so that they can operate those drones from a centralized location.
So I believe the number that was tossed around as far as how long we were affected, I think with the EOC being open, was 156 days. I think I've heard that term, which is almost half a year. Mm-hmm. So when did you all feel like we were starting to come out of storm and into normal operations again? DC Stepp?
The big turning point, I think, for everybody, not just us, but was when we were able to get water. even potable water, is when we really started to feel like, okay, everything's going to be okay.
And I think that was a little before Thanksgiving. Am I right there?
It was
like right the week before Thanksgiving, I think it was.
Well, it's funny you brought that up because, just to kind of link the partnerships, the full spectrum of city services. I think somebody who ended up becoming a pretty popular local celebrity was Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Yeah.
With his water updates. And he did a phenomenal job. And I think that's reflected in how much people appreciated him and expressed that both on social media. And, he got kind of famous from that. But point out that a lot of the visuals that he used in those presentations came from APD drones.
And without those drones, they wouldn't have had those initial shots as early as they did. They couldn't get up there to North Fork. They needed the drones to get the visuals, to know what they had to do to attack the situation and get the water back going again.
Yeah, it was both the North Fork and Beatree as well, because so many trees were down and the roadways were washed out that they had to use drones to be able to do that survey.
All right, let's talk about some other stuff that happened over the course of the year. I know that last year here statistically wasn't a great one in some ways. We had a record number of homicides and some other things, but so far 2025, and Deputy Chief Aardema, this is your universe a little bit more, we're in a good place with, I guess, crime statistics this year. Certainly homicides are down, some other things are down.
It's always tragic when you have a homicide. The end, full stop. It's extraordinarily more tragic when you have a record number of homicides like we saw in 2024. To only have 2, and that's not to discount the victims in those 2 particular cases, their family and people that care for them, but to go from a record year the year before to be where we are today, there's likely a number of factors, but we truly believe that the predominant factor is the work that we've done in developing our relationships through the Gun Violence Task Force, because the majority of our homicides in 2024 were a result of gun violence. And so we doubled down on our commitment to that task force, which again is a data-driven, repeat offender-focused task force that's specifically designed to work with all of our partners, both local, state, federal, prosecutors across the board, to focus our resources on the people that are actually carrying guns, using guns, and sometimes are projected to become victims of gun violence themselves.
Keeping with the positive, we've got a couple of things that kind of work together: recruitment, development, and also the pay ladder schedule, which I know DC Stepp, we're talking about the past year. I think you've been working on that for longer than a year, and it finally came to fruition this year into this budget season.
Yeah, and what a significant step forward for our agency. We had one goal going into this, and that was to address compression and to create career progression for us to be able to attract laterals and new recruits. And we did that intentionally so that we could go back this year and really focus on one issue, and that's the competitive market rate, bringing the base pay, even for police officer through the ranks, up. Historically, we tried to fight both. We tried to address compression as we could, and then also the competitive market rate. But now that we were able to pass this milestone, I look forward to the future and being able to get us up to a more competitive market rate. But from what we've heard so far, is always room for improvement, but very positive feedback.
And Chief, I suppose we should give a shout out to city leadership for supporting that plan.
Exactly, yeah. For council to be behind it and to back the plan. We've seen a lot more support from our elected officials, from city council over the last 2 years. So this last spring in 2025, and then the spring before that, they issued a proclamation for Police Week and Police Officer Memorial Day, recognizing the sacrifices that officers locally and also nationwide have made over the years, and then also being more supportive of us within the pay plan, within approving that pay ladder, and then also, working with us through the process. And so I really feel like the communication between the police department and council and also the city manager's office has greatly improved as well.
And as we continue to extrapolate those positives from the past year, Deputy Chief Stepp, let's not forget about the 30 by 30 initiative. And for some people that are not familiar, that is the goal of having 30% of all new recruits be female by the year 2030.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Rick. I appreciate that, and I'm excited to have entered into that pledge, that initiative. We've got Officer Mackenzie Gallion, who just became our first female SCAT instructor, and we're getting ready to send our first female detective to polygrapher school. So just excited about the opportunities here for women, and more importantly, to be a part of a leadership team who values diversity.
I think anyone that walks the halls of 100 Court Plaza, Building 81, whatever you want to call this, will instantly notice a female presence, obviously in our DC's office and on every floor, at every level, professional, sworn, non-sworn. There are women in valuable positions within this department.
Yeah, as an example, Rick, on the first floor, you've got a lot of our professional staff, our public information desk, logistics division that's got sworn and professional staff. As we move up to the second floor, some of our community engagement division, those officers there are female. You've got the detective division, who also has a number of females as well. And then on the third floor, of course, you've got myself, our public information officer, some administrative staff, and then even up to the fourth floor, you've got our recruitment and training unit who has females.
And women making an impact on the street as officers of the Asheville Police Department as well.
Absolutely.
You know, if there was a word that actually would be like the word of the year in the past year with several of the things that we've talked about, it would be support.
Yeah.
We're getting support from City Council. We're getting some support from the citizenry themselves. And we're getting a whole lot more support from people wanting to work here.
Yes.
And so a couple of things there. We had a large graduating class and now the first in-house police academy since 2013?
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so we used to run an in-house police academy. We ran that from 2005 to 2013. Deputy Chief Stepp was actually in the very first in-house class that we had in 2005. You know, what's interesting about the in-house classes that we had during that time frame is whenever we had resignations post-2020, the majority of the officers who stayed were ones who were part of that in-house academy. So I'm very proud that we've been able to bring that back in collaboration with the AB Tech and their BLET program. And so we've got 21 in the class now, and they are progressing through the different classes that they've had and they're going really strong right now. I'm also proud to see that they're working as a team together, supporting each other, studying together, working out together. And so that, the cadet class of 21 is 4 times larger than any class we've had for the last, I think since 2016, if I remember correctly. And then the academy class that we had before that was a cadet class of 15. And so those 15, that class is 3 times larger than any class that we'd had for the last 5 years. And so they are currently out in field training, learning the ropes from field training officers. And we hope to have them out on their own later this fall.
Let's talk about some of the great relationships we built around town, and we'll start with you, Deputy Chief Aardema.
You know, I was fortunate enough to be asked to be considered to have a post on the Board of Commissioners for the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville. Fortunately, the mayor, I guess, felt that I was a good candidate, and she appointed me to that board. I've served in that role since January. Historically, we haven't always had a super excellent relationship with the Housing Authority. But, you know, I've learned a lot personally about the mission of HACA. And, you know, one of the primary things is for them to have a good relationship with the police department. Well, now it's kind of built in. And since I began serving on that board, that relationship has improved exponentially. And I'm not taking any credit for that. It's just kind of opening doors and saying, like, hey, here I am, let's talk. It has resulted in us having a meeting recently with the new Chief Operating Officer of the Housing Authority, and that was a super productive meeting. Ella Santos, she's a great human being. She's deeply committed to safety and security of the residents in housing. And, you know, I point all that out to say it's unfortunate, but in light of talking about our record year in homicides and aggravated assaults disproportionately affect community members in Asheville that live in housing authority properties. And so we're trying to do everything that we can not, because the chief said it last night at the housing board meeting, as a matter of fact. We can't arrest our way out of those problems. It's going to take relationship building in those communities and increasing the amount of trust between those residents and the police department to truly solve a lot of the issues long term. I think we're well on our way there.
Going left to right in the room, we'll go to you next, Chief Lamb.
Over this last year, I had been a part of the COC board, so the Continuum of Care board, and I filled the public safety chair. And that really gave us an opportunity also to build relationships with a lot of the outreach partners and the different collaboratives that really focus on providing services to the unhoused. And the reason that's so important is because a lot of the crime issues that revolve around the unhoused are significant. And we were able to have those discussions within that room to talk about longer lasting solutions to crime and homelessness. And so it's much better to be able to do those things in collaboration, not just looking at it from a law enforcement perspective and a law enforcement lens, but looking at it from a community lens as well, because we were able to work with ABCCM, Homeward Bound, Sunrise, Safe Shelter. So it's good to be able to have conversations during the board meetings, and some difficult conversations as far as, folks holding other folks accountable whenever those crimes start to occur. I went off of the board in June, and now Captain Jonathan Brown has taken my place as the board liaison.
Deputy Chief Stepp?
I'll focus more a little bit on line level, like the importance of relationship building. We all sit on boards. I sit on Big Brother, Big Sister, hope to launch the Bigs and Badges program here before too long. But, we've got a dedicated community engagement division who do a wonderful job in scheduling events to put us out in the community, put themselves out in the community, build relationships, whether it's through a cookout. Within the last year or so, launched a new junior police academy. They've reamped and restarted the Citizens Police Academy. So they are really striving to, in every way they can, find ways to build those relationships throughout the community. We have Chess with a Cop down at Pritchard Park. There's so many different avenues that division is trying to go down to build those relationships, because they understand the importance of those long-lasting, trusting relationships.
And as we wind down the year and look forward to another year and 2026 just around the corner, I'll do the same thing. We'll just go left to right. Is there something you're looking forward to within the department, outside, inside? Anything come to mind?
I actually signed off this week on the panel questions for candidates for the traffic safety unit. We are really optimistic and looking forward to bringing that unit back. I think it's something that's been needed for some time. And, not just to make safer roadways within our community, but also to really give officers who have an interest in that line of work some career progression, to give them an opportunity to specialize in traffic safety issues, whether it be collision reconstruction, whether it be speed enforcement, but a big component of what our expectations are for that unit moving forward, in light of what Deputy Chief Stepp just talked about, is community engagement. There's an education piece to that unit that we're really, really optimistic about.
And I guess the bicycle team is them possibly coming back will be another community engagement piece.
It definitely would be. We're hoping that as we restaff with these bigger classes coming in, that we can start to bring back our downtown bike unit, and also a public housing unit. These are different units that our community are screaming for. Like, especially whenever there's a crime concern, we have community members and neighbors that are saying, I would love to see more police presence at this location or in this neighborhood, especially if people are feeling unsafe. But it's so important that as we get back out there, that it's not just a car sitting there or not just an officer standing on the corner. It's officers interacting with the community, having conversations, building relationships, because I think that's really what is going to make our community safer.
Deputy Chief Stepp, what you looking forward to?
A lot of what they said, just the restaffing and backfilling to really provide better police services across the community. But also we are launching a new division, our Intelligence and Technology Division. we are very data-driven with our response to crime and criminal activity. So really looking forward to kind of bringing that all under one roof and launching, hopefully our own real-time intelligence center. Looking forward to benchmarking pay and, again, taking that back to the city for a more competitive market rate.
Tell you something I'm looking forward to is we're celebrating just 1 year. It's a minor accomplishment with the APD Pod Squad. We're celebrating 150 years of the Asheville Police Department. And it's not often that the entire department can gather together and break bread, for lack of a better term. We have something like that coming up this fall, as we're going to celebrate a little bit at the Orange Peel.
Yeah. So in October, we will celebrate our 150th anniversary of the Asheville Police Department. The Asheville Police Department is rich in history, and we have, so many different officers internally that are also affected by the history of the department that had family members, grandfathers, great-grandfathers. My wife's great-grandfather was a lieutenant here at the Asheville Police Department and was one of the first motor cops that was here. So I'm really looking forward to the history book, to the history presentation as it rolls out, and that we look at, how far that we've progressed as an agency. Also, the community celebrating with us as well.
We're going to be celebrating the retirees with a barbecue, too, as well. Another way to celebrate with past APD.
Definitely. So September 6th, we're having a picnic and a department tour and also a history presentation for our retirees. So it'll be great to see them come back. I look forward to seeing some of my old lieutenants and sergeants and the different officers who helped mold me through my career.
Well, let's hope we have a hurricane-free fall and everybody enjoys all of our gatherings that we have. Thank you all for coming in. Deputy Chief Aardema, Chief Lamb, Deputy Chief Stepp, for coming by the APD Pod Squad. Let's do it again next year.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Rick, and congratulations on your 1-year podcast.
Thanks. It means I'm still employed. Yeah, that's awesome. Time once again for the History Minute with Hannah Silberman. Hannah, thanks again for joining us.
Glad to be here.
We got something very historical coming up that you're a part of. You heard the chief mention the cookout coming up with the retirees. As part of that is a little history segment that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to cover in that?
I have a limited amount of time, so probably just the earliest years of the department.
Just kind of some of the cool stories? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to be talking about something that happened like in the 80s when these guys were there.
Yeah.
Might bring back some memories for those guys. But that's something fun to look forward to. And then, of course, we have our big event coming up, and I believe is October, I think, at the Orange Peel. So that's another big event that we're having as a department celebrating 150 years, which is why we're having you in here for every podcast episode and learning a lot. So what do we have this episode?
Well, today we're just going to talk about some of our early chiefs.
Okay, we got some colorful ones, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a few that we've already discussed. Who was the one dude? Ambrose. I forget about him, but the name sticks out. And I remember looking at a picture of him, and he looked like an Ambrose.
Yeah.
So we got some more guys like that?
Yeah, so the thing about our chiefs of police in the 1870s until about 1920 is that they were elected or appointed every single year or every 2 years. So we had a lot of chiefs.
That's a lot of turnover.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have often the same guy get another term or no? It was always changing?
Sometimes, but sometimes they would serve 2 years, go for a break, and then come back again later.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they serve 2 terms in a row.
And when you get a system like that, sometimes you're probably not getting the pick of the litter, I would think, too. You might get like a political appointee that is a friend to somebody.
It was incredibly political.
Yeah.
And it was often, they would say, especially in like the 1880s to the 1890s, the chief was actually the most powerful position, and often the aldermen were picked depending on who they would appoint to be the chief of police.
So a lot of that stuff going on.
Yeah.
Chicanery, you could say.
I mean, we had all the officers were also elected every year.
The officers too?
Yes. And sometimes they would get kicked out because of their politics.
Wow.
So it was quite a thing.
Times were different. Mm-hmm. All right. Enlighten us.
So we talked about Ambrose, who was the saloon keeper.
Right.
He was our very first chief. But our second chief was Herschel Springfield Harkins.
That's another great one. We've talked about him before, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Okay. So he was the IRS collector. He did tax collection in the mountains, and he was in this really awesome shootout in Henderson County in the 1870s. Mm-hmm. And he later became the mayor of Asheville.
All right.
And so we did talk about him once. So he's very interesting. And the reason we're bringing it up now is also because the election cycle usually went May to May, but in the 1910s, most of them were appointed or took office in August or September. There's William Gaston McDowell. And he grew up in the Smith McDowell house. His grandfather was the one who built it.
Oh, the one right there in AB Tech's campus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he actually worked for the department for more than 40 years. And he served as the chief of police twice.
That McDowell family is one of the big historical families in Buncombe County.
For sure. There's Francis or Frank Nash Waddell, and he was the grandson of Francis Nash, the Revolutionary War general that Nashville, Tennessee, and Nash County are named after.
Yeah, I am familiar with that guy.
Yeah. His other grandfather was Hugh Waddell, who was a French and Indian War general.
Now we're going way back.
And he served for 2 terms, actually. And then the next one to succeed him was Alfred Hunter Baird, and he was the first cousin of Zebulon Baird Vance.
And the funny thing is, you're giving full names, right, including like middle names, because people back then did. It was like a full thing. Like you gave all 3 of your names. Like I'm wondering at what point in history we stopped doing that.
Well, they used to refer to people quite often by their first and middle initial. So that's something I've dealt with very much in the history research, because it wouldn't just be Alfred Baird. It was A.H. Baird, and you had to go figure out who that person was.
Well, Ulysses S. Grant, et cetera, all the ones like that come to mind that, they have William H. McKinley, all the different ones where they use that middle initial.
Yep. So Alfred Hunter Baird is particularly interesting to me because he was a Confederate Army colonel, but he served at the age of 20, leaving a cavalry regiment.
Well, now you know this, but some people don't, that back then you basically formed your own regiment and paid for it. So that's how you became like somebody of rank in the military, at least in the South, more so than the North. You basically paid your way into it. You could be a captain or you could be a colonel. It's whatever you called yourself because you had the money to back it.
But at the age of 20, I can't imagine. And then after the war, he moved to Texas and became a rancher and was a bona fide cowboy who herded cattle between Texas and Wyoming. But he moved back to take care of his aging father. And that's when he became our chief.
People really lived lives back then. I mean,
so
seriously, they did some things.
You can check out his mustache.
That is a lot of facial hair for a short area, small. Like it's like his entire mouth area is completely covered. It's like a hockey puck just sitting right there in his face.
He looks very well kept, though. So.
Well, no, it looks well groomed. I'm not saying he wasn't.
We had a tobacco warehouse owner named John Carter. William Alfred James, we've talked about, was the one who got into the fight and they shot his badge, and that's what saved him. And then John Lyerly is one of my favorite old-time chiefs. He started with the department in the 1890s. He gets elected twice in 1898 to 1901. He was very, very well-respected chief and law enforcement officer. He eventually comes back. He works as a patrolman for several years. His younger brother becomes our chief of police. And then he becomes the chief in Canton, North Carolina, after working as an officer with the paper mill. But then he gets offered a position as a captain, so he quits that to come back to Asheville PD and then becomes their chief again in the 19-teens. And then he becomes the sheriff shortly after.
So at what point did the whole system change and they stopped doing it every year and it became more of the way it is now, like more modernized? What year block? Are we talking like the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s? I mean, how far along in the path until things became more like they are now, where guys they climbed through the ranks and then they were, named the chief after being, gone through a series of qualifying interviews or et cetera, et cetera?
A big turn was in 1923 when the Public Safety Commissioner petitioned the other commissioners. And that is actually the exact point that we stopped appointing them every year. It was just until determined.
Okay.
They removed the term limits. It said that every appointment is made for an indefinite period of time. So that was the exact 1923.
Okay. So we have an actual date.
Yep.
Okay.
And then between 1923 and the 1930s, when we got the Civil Service Commission, civil service then governed how we chose our chiefs until the 70s.
Okay. So we only had about, give or take, about 50 years of the previous system.
Yeah, but it made us, we had a lot of chiefs.
We couldn't have been alone that way, though, right? I would think most cities probably operated the same way, at least the small-ish ones. Maybe places like New York City or whatnot, or the largest cities might have had a different system. But I'm guessing almost everyone was operating that way.
Well, I think what was so different about policing then was that there wasn't any single path to having a career in law enforcement because it was also political, that you had to apply, you had to have certain connections to get that job, and then it wasn't guaranteed. One year you might be cop, the next you might not. So they would jump around to different agencies and different positions constantly.
So career police officers didn't really exist.
They could if you were a certain type of person. But the other interesting thing was it often interchanged with the tax collection department. Like the tax collectors and law enforcement were deeply connected into the 1930s and 40s because it was usually a rough business to go collect taxes from people.
Well, for people that know the history of like with The Untouchables, the movie The Untouchables, how they got Al Capone was in the tax universe, not in the law enforcement universe. But in that movie, those two groups were kind of interchangeable. They both kind of worked doing similar things.
I would think of it more like in Robin Hood, where you have the sheriff that goes around to the doors and tries to get the money from people's house.
Sheriff of Nottingham?
Yeah.
That guy?
Well, I mean, that's like a bad guy. But you had to go to people's doors and knock on their houses and be like, cough up your money. And sometimes that was probably a little harder than it was, you would think.
And now I can't get the song out of my head from Bryan Adams. Thanks for that. Everything I do, I do it for you.
Well, the final mention I'll make on our early chiefs is Frank Jordan, who is one of our most memorable and well-known chiefs. He's most known for capturing Will Harris, which we'll talk about in November.
That's a great story.
But he was also just a super interesting guy. He served on and off with the department for nearly 15 years, and he became our chief only from 1903 to 1905. He quit briefly and then came back and was our first detective. He actually was our first plainclothes officer for 1907 to like 1909. And then he retired from here, became an insurance investigator, and did 40 years until his 80s as an insurance investigator.
So you could be a lifelong insurance investigator, but probably not a career policeman. So that's where we were. Well, thanks for that insight into some of our chiefs. Looking forward to hearing more about the Will Harris story. I know a little bit about it, but I'm really interested in your take and your depth on that particular story. It's one of the big history stories of Asheville that a lot of people are familiar with, but maybe we'll have something for them they haven't heard before.
Yep.
Hannah Silberman and the History Minute, thank you again.
You're welcome.
From the Community Engagement Division, Senior Police Officer Isaiah Senyak back in the chair. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
You kind of missed your turn there a little bit because you were away for, 2 months in training, right?
Yep. I went to general instructor school, which was a phenomenal experience, kind of difficult. But yeah, that allows me to be able to teach different courses in the BLET curriculum.
This is big because we are now having our own in-house academy. So we need more instructors to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I like instructing too. And I like the opportunity to bring my own pedagogy, my own personal style into the curriculum as well.
I mean, you're definitely the only person I know that's going to drop the word pedagogy. Just
Pedagogy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that one. Yeah, and I was a communications major, and I never even used that one.
It's a good word.
Well, anything over 4 syllables to me is I try and stay away from just so I don't mess it up, which I just did. So, part of the Community Engagement Division, of course, and always busy. And this time of the year is a great time of the year because you can do things inside. You can do things outside.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of the things we got coming up. I know our quarterly Coffee with a Cop is just around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's coming up Friday, September 12th, and that's going to be in West Asheville at West End Bakery from 8 to 10. They have really good pastries there too.
It's right around the corner. I've mentioned this to others from where I lived at 6 Vermont Avenue.
Okay.
For the longest time. Yep. They actually made our wedding cake. West End Bakery did.
They probably did an amazing job.
Yeah, and they got so busy. That was like part of their original thing to kind of, get business and get, they don't even do it anymore. They don't even that part of the business because it's a major pain, I would imagine, baking wedding cakes and delivering them and all that stuff.
I couldn't do it.
No, I can barely make brownies from a box. So they want me making a wedding cake. So that'll be what time? 8 o'clock, I believe?
It's 8 o'clock and it goes to 10 o'clock. It's just an opportunity to get together, discuss any sort of issues, problems, network, build lines of communication, that sort of thing. And it's very laid back.
Yeah, and we move it all over town, right? So we're in South Asheville, East Asheville, and so this is our first time in a while in West Asheville. And every neighborhood has their own set of situations and circumstances where they need to be heard by the Asheville Police Department. So we hope they all come out, all the neighbors, and join us for coffee and engaging conversation.
Absolutely. I have had some of the best conversations at Coffee with the Cops, actually, with various members of the public. They come there, and it's just the nature of the interaction is such where it can kind of, people get laid back and more relaxed and more freely to open up. And I don't know, it just opens those lines of communication, like I said.
A little more disarming. You're just standing, it's early in the morning. You're not real fired up yet to like yell at anybody. So you're just going to have your coffee and kind of ease into the day. Yeah. Maybe share some concerns that you got, and maybe we can solve some problems too. So what else we got?
Another thing coming up is a super cool event. It's September 18th, which is a Thursday, so mark your calendars. It's going to be from 5 to 9, and we're going to be going out to the Texas Roadhouse, where we're going to be doing a Tip-A-Cop event. And the money is going to be going to Special Olympics. So if you go to Texas Roadhouse on Thursday, September 18th from 5 to 9, and you mention the fact that you're there for Special Olympics, Texas Roadhouse is going to give 10% of the proceeds to Special Olympics. In addition, they're going to have hats and T-shirts for sale where 100% of the proceeds go to Special Olympics. We're going to have officers there, and there'll also be athletes there. So we'll be doing things nice. I don't know what we'll be doing there. We'll see. It's been a while. I used to work in a restaurant a long time ago, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of like restaurants that use the word Texas, that use road, that use house. Where's the location for this?
It's the one on Hendersonville Road.
Hendersonville Road, the one outside Biltmore Village?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so right near I-40.
Yes.
Okay, so there we go. All right, so now we know Hendersonville Road, just outside Biltmore Village by I-40, Texas Roadhouse on the 18th.
Yes, 18th from 5 to 9. Mention the fact that you're there for Special Olympics. It's a great cause, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, go eat some protein and raise money for a good cause.
Yeah.
All right.
So school's back in session, so it's a great reminder to be careful when you're out driving around. Make sure you're aware of the fact that there's going to be children, bikes, cars, stopping, frustrated parents, all that kind of stuff when people start getting into the routine. So school buses are out, use caution, stop for them. Don't pass them. It's 5 points on your license.
Yeah.
And it's important to keep those kids safe.
Yeah, you could hurt somebody too. That's just take a deep breath, leave a couple of more minutes early like me. I live right next to a school. Mm-hmm. Didn't think about it when we bought the house that much because I'd never lived right next to a school. Mm-hmm. So it's, was it Santo Venable Elementary, I guess is the one right there?
Yep.
And it's a 2-lane road. So when they're backed up, either lining up for the day or the afternoon, either dropping off or picking up, it's going to take a few extra minutes and sometimes you're going to be stuck behind it. But don't get frustrated, please, because that's when accidents happen. Yep. That's when people get hurt. And that's when you get 5 points on your license for maybe passing a bus. So you don't want that either.
Throw in a good podcast and leave a couple minutes early. You'd be amazed what you can pick up and learn just by a few minutes earlier. A book on tape.
Great time to take in the APD Pod Squad.
Yes.
Just while you're sitting behind an old, like a 78 Chevy, waiting for the line to pull into the school wherever you happen to be. But it's that time of the year, so just be aware of that. Senior Police Officer Isaiah Senyak, thank you again for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the APD Pod Squad. And thank you to my guests, Chief of Police Mike Lamb, Deputy Chief Sean Aardema, Deputy Chief Jackie Stepp, Hannah Silberman with the History Minute, and Senior Police Officer Isaiah Senyak. Off to a great start in Season 2. If there's something in particular you'd like to hear discussed, call 828-250-8800 and leave a voicemail. If you have a question for Chief Lamb, call that same number, 828-250-8800, and ask the Chief. That's 250-8800. Or you can email apdpodcastfeedback@asheville.nc.gov. I'm Rick Rice, and this is the APD Pod Squad.
Mountains high and rivers flow.